Assalamualaikum and very good morning to Madam May and fellow friends. We are from Group C. My name is Farha Hazika and with my other group members Amira Azmi, Nurdini Nabia, Nur Azmina Adriana, Anis Farzana and Aida Jasmine will present on the C-Hub Seng case study. First thing first, I will presenting on the background of the company in this case study. C-Hub Seng Holdings was established in 1971, which is stated in Singapore. Furthermore, SHS has evolved into a diversified group with three main businesses such as engineering and construction, corrosion prevention, and energy-related businesses. Furthermore, SHS has also reached extent beyond Singapore through the supply of a wide range of corrosion prevention equipment to industrial end users in Southeast Asia such as in Philippines and also Malaysia. Now, we look on the summary of this case study. There are two persons, Thomas Lim and Jimmy Tan, as the main character, where both of them are the major shareholders of SHS Holdings. In this case study, Jimmy Tan, which is the managing director as well as the member of nominating committee in SHS Holding, tried to remove Lim from the company due to conflict arise between them when Tan argued the investment through the minority shareholders that advocate by Lim. Lim is the person who founded SHS, has been castigated and threatened by Tan, such as not to vote Lim's re-election at the next AGM. Therefore, Lim has no choice than he resigned from the company and decided to reduce his shares in the company by transferring it to his son. Tan regretted his decision in ousting the founder of SHS, which is Lim. As the EGM loomed closer, there are requisitions to hold EGM by Terence, Chew Ho Soon, and Singapore Clearances, where they represent more than 10% of SHS shareholdings to remove Tan and also reappoint of Lim. Tan began to diminish his shareholding in SHS as a symbol of surrender of his faith at the EGM. Last but not least, after the EGM, Lim came back to his position in C-Hub Seng Holdings.
Discussion questions for this case study is firstly for the issue 1. What are the compositions of nominating committee in a company, and does the nominating committee in a C-Hub Seng perform their duties well? Discussion questions for issue 2 is what are the factors that cause boardroom tussle in a company, and the second question is in the case of SHS, does the boardroom tussle was ultimately good for the company and its shareholders? For issue 3, discussion question 1 is what steps can the founders of companies take in order to protect themselves from being ousted? And for a public company like SHS, how can directors be removed from the board? Next, for the discussion's objective of this case study is for the issue 1, to determine the composition of nominating committee and to study whether the nominating committee in this case perform their duties well. Discussion objective of issue 2 is to identify the factors that cause boardroom tussle in company and to study the effect of boardroom tussle for the company and its shareholder in the case of SHS company. Discussion objective for issue 3 is to determine the steps that the founder of the companies can take to protect themselves from being ousted and to identify the process of the removal of directors from the board in a case of public company.
The first issue involved in this case study is the effectiveness of the board. The bulk of nominating committee's responsibilities fall under board effectiveness, including succession planning, director recruiting and appointments, director educations, and director self-evaluations. In this case, Jimmy Tan was appointed as a managing director of C-Hub Seng and also a member of nominating committee. He also the chairman and co-founder of TAT Petroleum, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of SHS. This shows that the board structure of the company is ineffective as the nominating committee should mostly comprises of the independent director. This may create the conflict of interest of the director, where it may lead to the failure to act for the best interest of the company and poor governance. Therefore, the questions are what should be the composition of the nominating committee and whether the nominating committee in Seng perform their duties well. This is to ensure that the nominating committee are independent in their view and does not have any conflict of interest, as they plays an important role in the company to evaluating and nominating the new director to the board. Seng company needs to ensure that the nominating committee of the company performs their responsibilities well in order to maintain the good governance of the company. The second issue of this case study is the occurrence of boardroom tussle. Corporate tussle and board fight are not new to the corporate world. In this case, the boardroom tussle started to occur when Tan objected the investment advocated by Lim. Both of them have the differences in opinions on the direction of SHS Futures growth, which led to the disputes between the directors that caused Lim to resign, as he was threatened by the Tan's actions. This issue has been questioning the factors that may lead to the occurrence of the boardroom tussle in a company, and in the case of SHS companies, thus the boardroom tussle was ultimately good for the company and its shareholders. As we acknowledge, creating harmony with surrounding is important in our life. Likewise, it is also important to maintain harmony in business. When tussle happens, the board may not be able to provide the desired oversight over the management and lead to disarray management of the company. Nonetheless, there are situations when a conflict is justified, such as when the shareholders believe that the board is not performing their jobs. A hostile takeover can sometimes be regarded as a conflict. However, the party that has taken over the company may sometimes also end up adding greater value to the company. The third issue in this case is founders' control. For founders, maintaining control of the board is important, as it allows them the freedom to manage the company in the way that they believe best aligns with their visions. In this case, Lim had been pressured by Tan either to resign or risk being ousted, where he finally decided to resign from the company. Therefore, this shows that the founder of the company is lack of control, as Tan managed to secure the support of 33% of shareholders' vote in a bid to oust Lim in the upcoming April AGM. This issue has been questioning the steps that the founders can take in order to protect themselves from being ousted. This is because when a founder is being replaced, the company may be diverged from its founding concept, and the founder also may be forced out entirely. Next question for this issue is how can a director in a public company such as SHS being removed from the board? The company may wish to remove a director before the expiration of his office for several reasons, such as poor personal conduct and poor management, which affect the performance of the company. Thus, public companies such as SHS need to follow the procedures of the removal of the directors in order to ensure that the removal is valid and comply with the statutory law.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I'm Razmina Adrona Binti Azman, and I'll be explaining on the second chapter on literature review. The first point that I would like to highlight here is nominating committee best practices. So as we all know, nominating committee is a group of people or a key person to oversight the process of recruiting the director and to evaluate their performance, and also to drive the continuous performance from board of directors. So to ensure the nominating committee carry their duties well, we need to ensure there is a good composition of the nominating committee. So according to MCCG 2021, to be the nominating committee member, they need to be chaired by independent or senior independent director. It is also in accordance with the BUSA's listed requirement on paragraph 15.08a, where it states that to be the member of nominating committee, there must be non-executive members, non-executive directors, and also majority of them must be independent. Why independent? Because independent director are the person that free from any business or any other relationship that could interfere with the independent judgment or the ability to act in the best interest of the company. Not only that, the chairman also cannot chair the nominating committee, because this is in accordance with the practice 1.4 of MCCG 2021, where it states that the chairman of the company cannot involve yourself with the audit committee, remuneration committee, or nominating committee. The second point that I would like to highlight here is a factor that led to the boardroom tussle in this case. So what is boardroom tussle? Boardroom tussle is a meeting that will convened by the board of members in order for them to settle the dispute that will arise in the company. But the boardroom tussle have give the more negative impact, where it affect the survival of the organization, and also it reduce the level of trust among the board members. So the first factor that led to the boardroom tussle in this case is the board and management relationship. So according to MCCG 2021, where the engagement with the stakeholder are must when they want to create a high trust and understanding between the company and the stakeholder. So the stakeholder can be very big, whether it can be the employees, the consumers, the suppliers, or maybe the shareholder itself. But in this case, we are focusing on the board and management relationship, which refer to Lim and also Tan. Next, according to practice 12.1 of MCCG 2021, where the board must ensure there is an effective, transparent, and regular communication between the company and also their stakeholder in order for them to build the mutual understanding of each other objective and also the expectation. So the reason why there need to be a good relationship between the board and management, because both of the party are carrying the same responsibility to achieve the goals and objectives of the company, and next, to successfully implement and formulate the company business strategy. This is in accordance with the Bursa Malaysia Corporate Governance Guide. And the third one is to effectively implement the 4 governance functions that were highlighted by Trigger 2013, which are provided accountability, strategy formulation, monitoring and supervising, and the last one is policy making. The second factor that led to the boardroom tussle is board decision making. According to MCCG 2021, where the board is a head of company, so they are responsible to be the company leadership and collectively responsible for meeting the company's goal and objective. Besides, Forbes and Milliken's in 1999 also said that the effective oversight on the organization or exceed the capability of any individual. Thus, the collective knowledge and deliberation are the most suitable in carrying these tasks. And in order to develop this collective decision making is to create an environment to make an expression of disagreement before the dominant chairman make their discussion on the issue or before the chairman make their own decision. And next, how to facilitate good decision making. According to FRC guidance on board effectiveness in 2011, where in order to create a good decision making, there must be a high quality board documentation. Second, obtain expert opinion when necessary. Third, allowing time for debate and challenge. This is very important. And the fourth one is achieving time closure. And the last one is providing clarity on action required, time skills, and also responsibility. But sometimes the good decision making cannot be achieved because of some or several factors, which are the dominant personality or the self-interest. So the third factor that led to the boardroom tussle is duty and responsibility of director. According to Section 213 of Companies Act 2016, where it said that all directors must act according with the Companies Act for the purpose and in a good faith for the best interest of the company. And under MCCG 2021, where it states that all directors must objectively discharge their duties and responsibility at all times as fiduciaries in the best interest of the company, and they also must act with the integrity, lead by example, keep abreast in his responsibility as a director and of the conduct, business activities, and development of the company. The director duty can be divided into 3 types, which are the fiduciary duty, duty of care and diligence, and also statutory duty. In terms of fiduciary duty, the director must act bona fide in the best interest of the company, and also they must ensure that their actions are aligned with the view to enhance the interest of the company. And the third one is they need to practice the conflict no rule, where they cannot put themselves in the position where it can arise the conflict between their duty to the company, and they also must disclose their potential conflict to the company in accordance with what have been stated by Anandarja in 2014. According to Trigger 2013, where it said that the conflict of interest may arise directly or indirectly when the director personally benefit from a situation involving the company or maybe from the decision taken by the board. The second duty of the director is duty of care and diligence, where according to Section 213, Subsection 2 of Companies Act 2016, where it states that the director shall exercise the reasonable care, skill, and diligence with the knowledge, skill, and experience that may reasonably be expected of a director having the same responsibility and the additional of knowledge, skill, and experience which the director in fact has. In terms of statutory duties, according to Section 221 of Companies Act 2016, where it said that the director shall declare the nature of his interest on the property of fees, etc., at the meetings of the directors of the company. So we move on to the next factor that led to the boardroom tussle in SHS company, which is split in the role of chairman and also the CEO. Under MCCG 2021, it states that the role of chairman and CEO must be held by different person because of their different kind of responsibility. As for the chairman, their responsibility is to give their leadership or providing their leadership for the board in order for the board members to perform their responsibility effectively. And second one, they are the one who lead the board in adopting and implementing the good corporate governance practices in the company, and they are the one who are responsible to setting the board agenda and ensuring the directors are having the information correctly and in a timely manner. But the CEO, on the other hand, they are the one who making the policies to execute the strategies proposed by the board, and they are the one who manage the company's operation, and they are the one who being the central person in communicating the board members and also the corporate operation. And the reason why we need to split this role is to increase the accountability and provide the clarity on the division of the responsibility between them, and to prevent any conflict of interest interfere with the board discussion and decision making, and for the company to have two strong person which having different various kind of knowledge and skill to lead the company. The last point that I would like to highlight here is the founder control. So the founder control here refers to the power of the founder in influencing the direction of the company following their vision, based on their vision. But then nowadays the founder are being replaced by the new person because the company are seek for the person who are having various kind of skills, knowledge and experience to lead the company. But according to Hawk in 2019, there are several kind of methods that can be used or applied by the founder in order to remain their control in the company. For example, the most common method, and this method can be said having low equity ownership and also low management control, because the founder only can contribute their ideas in making an innovation to the current product, in helping the company to increase their value and give the impact to the company in terms of the profitability performance of the company. And the founder also can just pass their knowledge to the new CEO in order for them to ensure there is a stability of the company in the industry. The other method that can be used or applied by the founder is the bootstrapping method, and this method is being said having high equity ownership and high management control, because the founder only develop a very little outside financing because they want to ensure they are not losing their equity in the company, and this method requires the founder to give up less equity and only accepting the outside funding once the company starts to grow.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nurina Nabia binti Omarani and I will explain on the chapter 3. So the first one is the accountability in the nominating committee in terms of its compositions and board independence. And independent non-executive directors who are not directly employed by the firms and have closely control of other connections with it have become increasingly emphasized in corporate governance reports. Independent directors must not be confined with any business or other interests that could impair the capability to practice an independent oversight function or serve in the best interest of the company. The issue started when Jimmy Tan, which also known as Tan, was nominated as the managing director of Seng and a member of the nominating committee in 2012. It was noted that Tan was also the appointed chairman and co-founder of TAT Petroleum, a wholly owned subsidiary of Seng at the period of the time. As stated in the literature review, the composition of nominating committee should comprise of exclusively of non-executive directors and a majority of independent directors. To apply the above case mentioned with the literature review, it was obvious that the nominating committee failed in establishing the best practice of the committee. This is because that time, Mr. Tan was the managing director and also member of nominating committee of Seng until July, when he was removed from the board of directors at the shareholders meeting. Nominating committee has failed in ensuring appropriate balance of power in regards of appointment of director in the company. This has resulted to failure on board composition's independence that were required by the listed issuer. There was also a case over a few years ago whereby a non-executive director, Tan Ong Huat, at that time with other shareholders had asked for an EGM to remove Lim. As the non-executive director, they should have the ability to bring an independence in their decision-making and provide a balance in interest of the stakeholder. Such requisite requirement in respect of its board, committees, the criteria of the individual directors, together with the board nomination and directors election process, was not fulfilled by these nominating committees. As a result, a conflict of interest has arisen. The second one would be the conflict of board and management relationships, which resulted to boardroom dispute and board effectiveness. Unfortunately, the two differences were not constraints to their expertise, both in Seng and their thoughts on a company's potential developments. Tan triggered the first spark when he disagreed to $10 million development of an offshore drilling company through a minority interest. Lim endorsed the idea of the investment, which it has created great tensions between the two. The tensions become escalated further when both persons had opposing views on how to use Seng's considerable cash flow of $34.6 million to support the growth of the company. Things started to get worse in March 2013 when the Tan and Lim had yet another boardroom dispute. Tan chastised Lim and threatening not to vote for his re-elections during the next AGM. At the AGM on April, he did not run for re-election as chairman and terminated from his directorships on the same day due to Mr. Tan had gathered 33% of the shareholders to vote to remove him at the April general meeting. Mr. Lim left with no choice but considering himself with voluntary resignations. Similar situation happens on the 23rd of May 2013 when Lim's sons, Terence Lim, Chu Ho Soon, Singapore Cleanses, who were representing more than 10% of Seng's shareholdings, decided to file a requisition for an AGM to vote on the removal of Tan, the managing director, from office, reappointing Lim to the board, appointing Seng as an executive director, and cancelling the general share issue mandate approved at a general meeting on April. Both Tan and Lim can be said as purposely abused the no-conflict rule and their power by placing themselves in a position between the duties and making the best interest decisions towards the company and their personal interests. And in addition to that, it can be said as making ineffective decision was because the board has failed in creating an environment that allows the expressions of disagreement when a dominant personality making an impartially decision making. So the third one will be the breach of fiduciary and statutory duties under the Companies Act 2016. As mentioned under literature review, it requires a director to exercise its power for a proper purpose and in a good faith. When a conflict of interest arises between the self-serving interests and their duties or responsibilities towards the company, it will build into questions whether an individual acts and judgment may be impartial. So, the decisions being made was clearly not enhancing the interests of the company. Both Tan and Lim has failed fulfilling their statutory duties as mentioned in Section 221 and Section 219 of Companies Act 2016. Such duties include general duty to make a disclosure and to declare the nature of their interests. Apart from that, there was no collective board decisions within the board when Mr. Lim and Mr. Tan both have differing opinions on the directions of the Seng future developments, as well as in their different areas of expertise, which has led to conflict between the two. One would be the conflict in the role of chairman and CEO, even though under practice 1.3 of Malaysia Code on Corporate Governance 2017 were not made mandatory. However, it was advisable for the company to follow. The practice is to split the role of chairman and CEO, which also known as executive director. It was to avoid the dominant in role and personality. The presence of this dominant personality or roles has led someone self-unconscious and unable to make a neutral decisions, as the chairman is supposedly expected to slowly represent the shareholders with no conflict interest within the firms. It can be seen in the case where Jimmy Tan's plan to remove Thomas Lim eventually backfired, with Lim gathering shareholder support to evict Tan and reinstate himself. This is because due to the fact that the decisions being made was interrelated with dominant in roles and personality, which can inhibit contributions from other parties. The outcome from the requested EGM was it has restored the founder Thomas Lim as both an executive director and the chairman. These positions has introduced Mr. Lim with more complex with the company's commitment to the unitary board, which can then resulted Mr. Lim making a non-collective decision. These roles can be seen whereby Mr. Lim pushed for a $10 million investment in an offshore drilling company. Such decisions has created a boardroom dispute where Mr. Tan overseeing this investment was not to put the best of shareholders' benefits. There was also a time where Tan Ong Huat, the other former board members, which were also a non-executive director at that time, with other shareholders had asked for an EGM to remove Lim. However, with the power that Lim had, it has resulted in Tan Ong Huat's voluntary resignations.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning I bid to Madam May Sakura and to all my fellow classmates. My name is Anis Farzana binti Zulkifli, and I will present on the recommendation for Hapsing. So the first recommendation is the nominating committee should be well versed in terms of their composition and also board independence. So they should understand that the composition should only comprise of non-executive directors and a majority of independent directors. So as we could see in the case study, it was noted that Jimmy Tan is a managing director, and at the same time he is the member of nominating committee, in which he is not independent to exercise his judgment as member of nominating committee. So in order to cope with this during the appointment of nominating committee, they should be well versed in terms of their composition and also board independence. So the second recommendation would be to develop a harmonious relationship between board and management of Seng so that it can lead to effective decision making. So it is important to develop good relationship between the board and management, since it is an essence for good governance and also to ensure organizational effectiveness. As we could see in the case study, tension has escalated and boardroom dispute has arisen. So it is important for the board and management to develop harmonious relationship, and this can be done by establishing mutual respect, in which when we do this, the communication between the two parties will somehow be much more freer. So the third recommendation would be to ensure that the board could fully understand before they are able to deliver their fiduciary and also statutory duties. So it is important to know that the board is expected to act in good faith and for the best interests of the company. So one of the fiduciary duties is to act in bona fide or to act in good faith. And meanwhile, for statutory duties, they are expected to act honestly. So by looking at the case study, we could see that the failure of Tan Ong Huat, who is the non-executive director, to be independent in bringing impartiality whenever conflict arises. So in order to cope with this, we should ensure that the board are able to fully understand the principle first before they are able to deliver it towards the company. So as for the last recommendation would be to split the role between CEO and chairman so that we can avoid domination in role and personality of the executive director. The purpose is to ensure that there is a balance between power and also authority. Also to provide high effectiveness for check and balances over the performance of the organization. So it is as simple as director who do too much will be treated in the same manner as director who do too little, in which they will be asked to complete their term and to make new room for new board members to come in and to serve for the company. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.
To sum up, SHS Holding has grown for many years with diversified group in the engineering and construction, corrosion prevention, and energy-related industries. At the beginning of the case study, it seems that Jimmy Tan, the causes of all these things happened. However, after analyze the main cause and try to question ourselves why these issues occur in the company, it also comes from the founder of the company, which is Thomas Lim. This is because the major decision will come from the owner of the company that usually take place in the original family business. Meaning here, the business power of their position can easily be influenced and controlling the decision making during board meeting. For instance, Lim is the owner and also the shareholders of the company fall into the issues in a relationship between the company board and its shareholders. Other than that, the case study also relate with the issue of effectiveness of the board and occurrence of the boardroom tussle.